big ball with some kids. Look at that reverse from Luis Moreno, Dave. Absolutely phenomenal.
1-0.
Andy Nett completely overhitting that fist to the ceiling. Actually put it in the upper deck.
Play it again, 1-0.
And that is the only court hinder here, Dave. When you hit the ball up into the grandstand, we do play it over. Should that just be a side out, Dave, or a point?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
But it's such a strange one because every court is built differently. But in racquetball, if you hit it out of the court, it's automatically out, side out. Or
2-0. Sorry.
But here in handball, we're slow to change any type of rules since the 1849s.
Well, that is until you and I get involved, and then we just ruin every new rule that we start. That's what we do. We think we're smart. And Eddie Nett just looking terrible there.
Well, that's the hop that Luis puts on the ball.
He hopped it right off the middle of the back wall. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, he put a huge spin on that.
I'm looking, Dave, at Luis's ankle. Looks like he's recovered, Dave, from turning his ankle. You know, Luis will never complain about anything, but we know that he did turn that ankle.
You can see a brace on his, what looks like a brace on his right ankle, but
I actually don't think I see a brace there. Andy Nett winning his first point with a changeup there, Dave.
1-3.
You know, Dave, a lot of celebrities can't walk through crowds because of the swarming adulation. You and I actually can't walk around the handball club, Dave, because we're blamed for everything that goes wrong and actually criticized.
well, I haven't been blamed for anything because I'm refusing to take my headset off.
Oh, okay.
And we can't hear one thing anyone is saying that doesn't have a headset on. So,
well, I've actually learned to read lips with my headset on because about 25 times a day someone asks me what the score is with my headset on. So I've learned to read that. Now it's Andy Nett tying Luis Moreno here. I'm surprised Andy Nett doesn't go with his serve down the right, Dave, that we saw him use earlier this morning. I know Luis is right-handed, but that's serve down the right is just so devastating, Dave, that I don't really think it matters if you're serving into a strong hand or a weak hand because it's just moving so fast. He serves the ball down the right considerably harder, Dave, than he does down the left.
I think most people do, Dave.
Well, I agree with you, and that's why I think Andy Nett should be serving down the right. You see Tommy Little has such a great serve down the right. He goes down the right. Everyone he plays is right-handed.
Now Andy gets to have a little taste of his own medicine right now with Luis giving him the type of serves that he was giving you.
I still don't believe that Luis Moreno hits the ball as hard as Andy Nett on that serve. I've played both those guys, Dave, several times, and I've just never seen anybody hit the ball as hard as Andy Nett on the serve. And during the rally, Luis Moreno, Dave, I mean, we're speculating here, but I don't think he's played handball in 3 weeks, and he comes out here just completely in the groove.
Well, you have to understand, Luis Moreno was trained by John Henning and then Fred Lewis. And
Lois?
Lewis.
Oh, Lewis, okay.
7-3.
And he knows the game of handball. He knows the strategy of how the game's played.
Well, he's also the natural.
Look how he just glides around Andy Nett. You can see why he has so many fans here.
Roy Hobbs took about 15 years off, Dave, but he always had his head in the game. He's the natural.
Luis caught that ball with his left hand. Luis Moreno not shot by a silver bullet, though.
Thought you were going to ignore my reference. Maybe you didn't know, but you did. He actually brought the first smile that I've had in 3 days, and that's not a lie. This ball sounds like it's broken, Dave.
Oh.
Sorry, played over.
Dan Armijo
Forgot about the bad bounce
calling.
momentarily.
He has a rule sheet in front of him, does he not, Dave?
It was a bad bounce, but I forgot about the rule. I know, we do. We play through everything. I open my mouth, though. Effective play. Replay.
Dan Armijo making the right call there. He accepted that he made a mistake there. It was contrite. That will be noted, Dave, in his report card. Not absolved, but noted. I feel like this ball is broken,
Yeah, I was
Dave.
just going to say, it sounded like it broke more on that last shot. In fact, I can hear it almost on every ball that's being hit. Well, we said earlier today, how many balls will these guys break before this match ends today? I'm guessing 3. We're only 11 points into it. It even sounds broken when they bounce it on the floor.
You know, I was thinking about this yesterday. What if, Dave, there's just a small hole that opens up in the handball where it's not a complete crack, but just a small hole, and the ball loses air and then just loses that bounce that it has to it? Is that possible? Or would the ball actually have to crack at a seam?
Well, it doesn't have to crack at a seam to be broken, but that's up to the referee. I mean, if the ball does not bounce and you can see a hole, then they would have to replace the ball. If this is slightly broken and not as lively as before, that'll benefit Luis Moreno and not Andy Nett. Andy relies on that 90-mile-per-hour serve down that right wall. 6 serve 7. Andy's coming back now.
I don't think Andy Nett has that great of a serve down the left, Dave. And I'm surprised that he's going to it here. I think he's much more effective serving down the right.
Now we're all together at 7.
Together at 7. Point.
It's an amazing serve right there.
Well, that's the serve down the right, Dave. And
yeah, but that was a crack serve.
It's so much, but when he serves down the right, he either hits a bullet straight down the wall or he catches the crack. There's really no opportunity for a bad serve unless he overhits it. And there's another serve down the right. There's just nothing you can do with his serve down the right, Dave. Even if you know it's coming there, you can't do anything with it.
Well, you knew it was coming, and it was very difficult.
And look at the setups now that Andy Nett has because of serving down the right. He hit 3 consecutive aces, and now he's got Luis Moreno overhitting. Nice get there from Andy. Not a good shot there from Luis. Where was that shot when I needed it, Dave? I could have used a couple of those shots from Andy Nett earlier today.
You're watching the Tucson Race for 8, sponsored by Simple Green and the World Players of Handball, brought to you live here, streaming coverage from the Tucson Racket and Fitness Club. That ball hit Andy right in the face.
Well, Andy was not expecting that ball to bounce into the side wall with the reverse. But Luis disguises the reverse so well, Dave. You see so many guys disguising their hops because of a generic swing, but Luis has that beautiful flowing swing, but yet still able to disguise the hop.
Second serve.
That's with a fist.
That's a terrible shot from Luis.
See how Moreno gets right back into the middle of the court, take away Andy's position.
Beautiful pass shot there from Andy, and it's run down by Luis and a big setup for Andy.
Sounds like the ball's just completely broken
and Andy
right now.
hitting 2 consecutive balls off the bottom of his hand with his right hand and huge back wall setups, and just hands Luis 2 points.
Well, he had a tough match earlier today. He's already gone tiebreaker today in this tournament. This is Luis Moreno's first match of the tournament.
I don't think that that's a fatigue issue, Dave. I think that's just a lack of concentration and lack of watching the ball when you're hitting the ball off the bottom of your hand on a huge setup.
10-9.
I just thought it was TMH. Too much handball.
Well, let's not forget, Dave, if Andy Nett wants to win this event, he'll need to win 3 more matches to capture that yellow jersey. And it's not like the old days on the Pro Tour, Dave, where the tournament started on Thursday and ended on Sunday. The tournament starts on Friday and ends on Saturday, so you have to win 4 matches in just over 30 hours. That's a daunting task, but you know, Dave, someone has to do it. Someone's going to walk out of here with the cash and the yellow jersey. That's just the way it is. We have not seen a qualifier, Dave, or anyone that's played in that round of 16 win one of these race stops yet, though, Dave. All of the race winners have been guys that have had that first round bye. Luis Moreno with the first round bye in Idaho ended up winning the tournament. It was Sean Lenning who had the first round bye at the HBC2 in our first race format here in Tucson at the end of March. So you have to think, Dave, that there is an advantage to having that bye, but let's not forget, Dave, the guys that are receiving the bye are the best players. And the cream rises to the top, as they say.
Well, we'll see how everything pans out toward the end of the race. That's where it'll all be laid out there for us, right?
It's starting to pan, though.
I can start to see a shift.
Yeah.
But I would say after Fresno, you'll have a really good landscape of how the race is going to fare. As then we turn the corner and head to Hotlanta, and
it's
then,
not going to be so hot, though, in January.
and then Salt Lake City, where it's not going to be so salty in that Lake City.
Why not? Does the salt dissipate from the lakes in the winter?
I'm just saying.
I think you're wrong. Just because it's not going to be hot in Atlanta doesn't mean the lakes won't be salty in Salt Lake.
Well, we're not going to be playing handball on the lake.
That's not an issue. The issue is the salt in those lakes. I know, Dave, that you're very well liked in Salt Lake City. You actually did a stand-up comedy show at Lon Stallsberg's outdoor summer barbecue that was very well received by no one except for me.
Well, at least you have a sense of humor.
Well, it's actually a terrible sense of humor, so if I'm laughing at you, you know you're not doing something right.
Andy Nett serving at 9-13, first game against Luis Moreno.
Now, let's not forget, Dave, Luis Moreno is certainly one of the best players in the world, but he's playing Andy Nett here. He's had the bye. He also lives in Tucson, so he didn't have to travel here, Dave. He didn't have to get on a plane. He's not staying in a hotel room. He's staying in his own bed, playing on his home court, and he's completely fresh. Those are some huge advantages in Luis's favor. Now, Andy Nett, hungrier, I believe, Dave, to win this match. He's also got momentum from winning that match this morning.
See that play a lot where the players get lined up right in back of each other and they're trying to slide the ball down the wall because it's really their only choice, and then you always hear the referee call that hinder call. I don't think there's anything that you could do to get around that.
Now Andy Nett really starting to hit the ball hard, but it's another hand air with his right hand, Dave, and I'm not sure what's causing this hand air. His feet are in a good position. He looks like he's relaxed, but he's just shanked a couple of balls off the bottom of his hand. It's very uncharacteristic for a top pro player, Dave, to completely shank setups. And we've seen Andy Nett shank 4 balls with his right hand, and there's a left-handed shank. Now that one's a little bit more understandable, Dave, as he's being pushed back and the ball gathers speed off the left side wall. Luis Moreno has flat killed his last 2 first serves, Dave, nearly skipping both of those in. You know, you wonder, Dave, why Luis doesn't just serve that deep 2-wall crack on his first serve, because it's so dangerous.
11-14.
The last thing you want to do is let Andy Nett back in that server's box. Just
beautiful shot there from Andy, but Luis tracks it down. This is the intensity that we never saw from Luis Moreno, Dave, until this year. We saw it in spurts. We saw it when he beat Paul Brady, but then we saw Luis kind of go through a lull where it didn't seem like he really cared all that much. Now he's very much engaged.
Replay.
I'm not sure I agree with that call, Dave. Luis Moreno was out of position there, and he got a slow start there, but
12-14.
maybe you give him the benefit of the doubt there. Dan Armijo is right down on top of the court, so. And I just don't understand, Dave, why Andy Nett is not using that blazing serve down the right side.
Maybe in the post-game interview, we'll ask him.
I just don't understand it, because his serve down the left just doesn't have the same zip.
Was that a short ball?
No, that was good. And that's an area of Luis's game that I think has really improved, Dave, is his right-handed back wall kill. He's turned that into one of the best shots in handball. I think before this season, Dave, he was a lot more erratic with that right-hand back wall kill. Let's not forget, Dave, in the last 2 pro events held at this club on this court, Luis Moreno lost to Marcos Chavez, and the year before he lost to Owen Kennedy. So he has not had good results in his hometown event, being bounced in the quarterfinals of the last 2 pro events held at this club. Here he is in the quarterfinals here, looking to erase that trend. This is an old school ref, Dave, and he's making a lot of calls here as opposed to what we've seen earlier today. And Luis Moreno finally does drive that ball into the floor. He was so close to hitting balls into the floor over his last 2 or 3 serves, and that time he does hit the ball into the floor. Now, Dave, I'd like to bring that rule up to you.
Okay, what rule are we referring to?
Well,
hitting the ball on the ground?
I'd actually like to talk about that at the next timeout. So
Well, just give me a sneak preview of what you are referring to.
I'd like to talk about losing your serve if you serve the ball into the ground. And now we don't need to discuss it right now.
You do lose it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
I think I know where you're going to go.
Okay. I like that camera angle there, and Andy Nett was in control of that rally, or at least neutralized in that rally, and just off balance there with the left hand. Both these guys now gotten a little bit flat here in the middle of this first game. Whoever can impose themselves here, Dave, I believe will take this first game. And a good shot there from Andy Nett.
Andy's starting to step it up a little bit here. Listen for the score.
Does it seem like, Dave, that Andy Nett's hitting the ball as hard now as he was in his first round match? I believe, Dave, and it's hard for me to judge, that he was hitting the ball a little bit harder earlier today. Now, I would trust your judgment.
I think he was hitting it harder than this morning, but I also think this is a different ball, and he's probably a little bit tired.
Okay.
This ball does not seem as lively as that one, but I mean, it's easy for us to judge. When you get in the court, it's completely different than what you see on video.
Well, it's interesting because I was in the court, and now I'm watching it from and a terrible shot from Luis. And a worse shot there from Andy. And that rally was just destined to not end well, and it didn't.
Well, it ended well for Andy, who was on the ropes there.
Well, he was on the ropes, but then he had a huge back wall setup that he hit over his head, behind his back.
Well, 14 serves 12.
Nadi Jr. steps into the booth here, Dave. He's been wearing the same sweatshirt for the last 7 years. He's worn it every day. The poor guy, I mean, he wins all this prize money and yet can't get himself a new sweatshirt.
Another replay called right there on that kill shot. Nadi Alvarado loves the Anaheim Angels, and he is, I guess, getting paid by Disney to wear that shirt everywhere he goes. Don't think it's just here at handball tournaments, but he wears that when he goes to church, out to Ruth Chris's
so he throws
Steakhouse.
He throws a tie on underneath that that red sweatshirt then.
When he runs his mortgage company, he wears that Anaheim Angel sweatshirt. That's just what he does.
I didn't know that.
That's what makes Naughty Alvarado special. He is being paid by Disney.
Well, you can appeal. No one saw a slide.
That's the first person to appeal a slide, even though that is technically feasible to do as a player here. 13-14 first game.
And a second consecutive ace on the deep left crack from Andy Nett. He's put a couple more MPHs on that serve, Dave, and that was the difference between the ball hanging on the sidewall and the ball sliding down the sidewall. And there's the same serve again, and this time Luis wraps it around. Oh, and Luis with a deep court left-hand kill there, Dave, receiving serve. That would have given Andy Nett a lead here late in this first game, and Luis taking a big chance in converting.
Look at that power right there from Luis.
Luis hits it right back to Andy there.
Terrible shot from Andy, and Luis is going to punch that ball. Andy's, the best thing he can do right now is shovel.
And Andy did well to stay alive in that point. He's looking for a screen there. I think he might have a point. Luis hit the right corner, Dave, and the ball went across his body. Andy was behind him. I think he lost sight of it. It wasn't a very difficult pickup for Andy there. He wouldn't have done much with it, but I think he lost sight of the ball. Not a good serve for Luis, but Andy just doesn't move his feet there, and that's frustrating, Dave, as a player, when you have a serve that sits up off the side wall and you just can't get yourself out of your own way.
I agree with you. You know, he looked like he shuffled over to take that with his right, but he
16-14.
He was originally setting his feet to take that with his left, and it just sort of ate him up, so he had to flip it with his right. Luis is hitting the ball really hard right now, Dave.
Well, both these guys are now, Dave. It's as though they both know that they've got a great chance to win this first game, and now these guys are just stepping in and crushing the ball. And this is what I expected to see here, Dave. Two of the hardest hitters in the sport and two of the most athletic guys in the sport. If you had to pick what an athlete looks like, Dave, it would be these two guys. They're tall, they're lean, they're flexible, they're quick. They've got incredible dexterity. They've got all the tools, Dave, that you could ever ask for in a great athlete.
15-16.
And none of them are vegetarians. 15 serves 16.
Short.
Knew you'd find a way to work me in there somehow. Well done. And a lot of people, Dave, in the gallery might be surprised here at the score line. Those who watched Andy Nett play earlier this morning, I don't think will be surprised because they know that Andy Nett's a player. But a lot of these guys, Dave, come here after work and they're skipping their afternoon shift at work and checking out their hero, Luis Moreno, playing this guy that they haven't really seen. And they're surprised that Luis Moreno is in a battle here. It's just incredible, Dave, how much Andy Nett has improved
17-15.
in the last 2 years. By far, Dave, the most improved pro player that I've ever seen. He did it in his late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah.
Most guys, Dave, are sort of leveling off there, maybe even going down a little bit.
You're saying that he's the most improved, but I think Charlie Shanks is the most improved.
Well, to me, Charlie Shanks has always been a really good player who wasn't able to win close matches. Andy Nett came onto the scene, Dave, and he was losing badly to these guys. He used to lose to Luis Moreno 21-2, 21-3. I remember the first time Andy Nett played Dave Chapman, he only scored 5 points combined in 2 games. And now this is a guy, Dave, that's challenging these guys and on the cusp of beating them.
This ball's broken, Dave, but yet it's still bouncing. I mean, you can hear it on every shot.
I think what you're saying, Dave, is the ball is now dead. These guys have hit the ball so hard so many times that the ball has actually lost its liveliness.
Well, it still looks lively, but you can hear the sound of it.
Well, I think the ball sounds dead. Great power there from Andy Nett and a fist pump. Andy Nett giving that serve everything he had. We first started to recognize that Andy Nett served down the right, Dave, at the KCAC 3-wall event where he beat Alan Garner. Went on to almost win that event, lost in the semifinals, but I don't think we'd ever seen anything like that serve before, Dave.
It's the first time I've seen anybody hit a ball that hard. And he almost picked off Emmett Pachot, who was the current national champion at the time. 16 serve 17 at that event. And then from that point on, we've seen him really just jump up the rankings and start winning some tournaments and beating people that you didn't think he would be able to beat.
Well, he beat Shorty Ruiz in 3-wall last year at the 3-wall nationals, Dave, which at the time no one knew how great a win that was. We do now.
17-16.
Little do I know, I actually predicted Shorty to beat Andy Nett there, even after the KCAC event. And that ball coming right off the hind side of Luis Moreno.
But it was Andy Nett losing to Luis Moreno 21-2, 21-8 after he beat Shorty Ruiz. And you see the improvement now is
He didn't move. That's where he started from. I know.
he didn't move, but he had to move.
Replay. 17-16.
Andy was just saying, I get called for that. And Luis is saying, I jumped over the ball, tried to at least get out of the way.
Look at that power from Luis. He was going to drive that ball into the right corner, but the ball popped up. He made a fist and punched it down the right wall.
18-16.
Score is 18-16 now. And look at
Incredible serve there from Luis Moreno.
Now that's the one that you think should be a first serve for Luis, and a timeout's being called from Andy Nett, and you wanted to discuss the ball going into the ground.
Well, if you serve a ball 1 inch high off the front wall and it's short, you get a second serve. Yet if you hit the ground first, you're out of the box. I don't understand how you can judge, you know, one shot is worse, so now you're automatically out of the box. I mean, if you skip a ball in a rally, you've lost the point. Or, you know, I don't really understand. I'm confused why you should be punished for hitting what's the same thing as a short serve. Why is it that one is worse than another?
Well, because you've got 400 square feet to just get the ball into, and if you're unable to do that, you probably don't deserve to be serving.
Well, that's not really something I necessarily agree with. To me, a short is a short. I don't see the distinction. You know, in tennis, Dave, if you serve your first serve into the crowd, you still have a second serve. They don't say, well, you didn't serve the ball into the court. You hit the ground before you hit the net. So you know, I try and compare apples to apples, so to speak, and I just don't see that rule being in play in anything else. In baseball, Dave, if a pitcher throws a pitch and the ball lands 10 feet in front of him, the player doesn't get an automatic walk. It's just a ball. And I think you're actually seeing my point of view here as much as you don't want to.
19-16.
Score is 19-16. Luis Moreno now serving here late in the first game against Andy Nett. Luis jumped over that one that time.
Good power there from Andy Nett, and I'll take your silence on that discussion, Dave, to mean that you actually are kind of agreeing with me.
We've seen Andy Nett in this position before get 3 straight points. Let's see if he can do it again. And you're saying that he shouldn't be serving down the left, he should go to the right.
That's right, and there it is. Beautiful serve. Here's a great return from Luis, but that was an amazing serve. He'll get a setup or an ace on that serve, Dave, 8 out of 10 times. Look at that shot. It was a la Nadi Alvarado Jr. minus the wet knee pad as he goes down on that knee and kills that ball flat.
17-19.
Nadi Jr.'s knee pad, Dave, will actually be inspected by the referee before the match starts, Dave. If that knee pad is wet, he will be asked to remove the knee pad before the match starts.
You guys gloves okay? Andy, I want you to change yours. While you're changing your gloves, I'll check. Go ahead, check. Glove change. Oh, did it? Okay, well.
And it's been broken.
But
as far as we've been concerned, Dave. And Luis, I guess, is just going to break it more. And that's kind of what I was saying, Dave, that the ball just has the slightest crack in it that you can't detect, but we can hear the difference and we can see the difference in the way the ball plays, and the players and referee might not be able to see it because unless you really inspect the ball closely, you don't know that it's broken. I believe that ball has been broken for about the last 15 minutes.
I would say longer than that. I mean, we heard it about 4 to 7. Actually, I remember it being 7 to 4, so I was thinking combined 11 points. That's how long it took. And really what you're saying is there's going to be a pinhole in there. When that ball flattens out on the front wall, all the air leaves the ball, and then it comes back, and it just has a weird sound. Now, we're sitting here with headsets on. We've got literally thousands of dollars worth of electronic equipment piped into this court, and we can hear the difference between that first serve and then what we've been hearing lately. And usually when something is making a different sound, something changed in the ambiance of that room or the ball's broken. And now
we know that room is sterile, so nothing changes. No one's allowed in. And it will be Andy Nett serving now with a new ball. Remember, Dave, he came in and served at 17-16 with a new ball in the second game in his match this morning, and that made a huge difference because that ball had an extra 8 to 10 MPHs on it. Made it impossible for the returner. And that's the biggest fear, Dave, is as an opponent, is to see a big server get a new ball in a critical moment like this. That's why I believe, Dave, that they should have 10 to 12 balls warmed up already so that when you send a new ball down into the court, it plays roughly the same as the ball that was just broken.
Well, Luis is making it that
well,
same ball right now.
It's going to take a lot longer than 10 hits to get the ball playing the way the previous ball was playing, Dave.
Well, the previous ball that was playing was dead, Dave. I don't know how you want to get to be playing like that.
Testing at a lab and we could find no crack. I think it's okay.
They are still with the same ball. They could not find a crack.
No, they actually replaced the ball, but they took the other ball out of play despite not being able to find a crack. Didn't matter, though, because Andy Nett, that last point was a hinder, so it doesn't affect anything.
Not, bro. You guys can request a new ball if you want.
No, it's the same ball, Dave.
Okay.
Well, throw it. I tried to break it open. It's fine.
That's not going to break the ball.
If you guys want a new ball, we can get a new ball. Okay.
I think that's a smart decision, actually, Dave, because it seems like that ball's on the verge of breaking. You'd hate to see a ball break at a critical moment. Perhaps Andy Nett killing the ball for the 20th or 21st point and having to replay it.
I agree with you. I mean, I felt that the ball broke a long, long time ago, and I know you brought it up first. So like you felt it.
Yeah, that was short. No, it's still a second serve.
Since the ball was replaced and both players agreed on it, then Andy Nett's assuming that that ball is not a short ball anymore.
Beautiful play there from Andy Nett. Great serve. Beautiful kill shot.
18-19.
One of the rare bad serves that Andy Nett has hit down the right. It still wasn't terrible, Dave, but Luis Moreno fighting it off for a right corner flat kill. Luis overhitting the serve and Andy Nett making him pay. Andy Nett has great spacing between he and the ball, and he has got such long arms that he seems like he's so far away from the ball when he's making contact. He really extends.
Score here is 18-19. This is the first game. Ball just barely over the front wall. Andy dives for it. Moreno unable to get it. A little bit of frustration right there.
It's amazing that Luis Moreno returned that serve somehow.
Andy Nett now 2 points away from taking game number 1 after Luis seemed to be in the lead and kind of dictating the flow. And there it is. Now Andy Nett will be serving at 20.
Amazing play from Andy Nett.
Is he going to sneak one to the right here, Dave? He's gone 2 in a row to the left.
He actually overhits it, but he has enough reverse on it.
Wow.
And Luis Moreno, Dave, somehow with those amazing hands, redirects a ball that's right at his feet.
I thought when Andy hit that ball too hard that he was going to get a deep crack with that.
Look at the speed on that serve, Dave.
It was short.
Phenomenal, though. It was short, I agree with you. Well, this could be a double fault here, Dave. Or an ace. Did I say the ace part too late to get credit?
Luis has got a lot of confidence when he's serving. Now let's see if he goes with that reverse down the middle to the right. That's his put away. There it is. Luis Moreno takes game number 1, 21-20, and Andy's looking up at the referee, but that was a great shot from Luis Moreno, who takes that first game.
Andy not looking for a hinder there, just disappointed with himself. He had an opportunity to win that game, and Luis Moreno just so cool under pressure, Dave. But let's not forget, Andy Nett lost a very close first game this morning and came back and won the match, so he won't be deflated here as we see Luis Moreno getting a quick drink of water here. This is a replay of game point 2020.
Let's see what Andy was looking back at.
Luis just hit a great shot there. Andy played for that ball to bounce into the side wall, but it didn't. And fortunately for Luis Moreno and his legions of fans, Dave, Luis Moreno makes a comeback there. He trailed 2019 with one of the best servers in the world in the server's box, but Luis able to get him out and score consecutive points to take game number 1.
We're going to take a quick timeout. We'll be back in 2 minutes for game number 2 between Andy Nett and Luis Moreno. You stick close here at racefor8.com.
Yeah, there's Cowboy. Look at you on the camera. Go for it. Well, don't touch that. This is not yours. Wait, hey, fool, give me the good one. Oh, yeah, it is. Huh? ¿Y por mí no está? ¿Para qué se iba a quebrar cuando hit it? Spike! Spike! Yay! One more time. Otra, si no. Ah, fuck. Just turn off the camera though. Roll it? Well, dile big ball. Huh? Tell him big ball. Big ball? Ah. I'll take that as a day.
And we are back live in Tucson at the TRC. My name is Dave Vincent alongside Dave Fink, Andy Nett,
Okay, time to
served a couple times at 20 to defeat Luis Moreno and is unable to do it. Now we're getting ready for game number 2 at 0-0 here. It's a 3-minute in-between game timeout, and Moreno is now 30 seconds late getting into the court. For those of you that have just tuned in today, the Rules Committee, alongside the pro players at a dinner last night, have changed the in-between games that normally is a 5-minute break is now 3 minutes between games. And we're now cranking into the 4-minute mark here with no referee sanctions or anything, Dave Fink. It's a apparent code violation.
I
what do you
actually
call that, a $25, $35 fine?
I blame the referee for this, actually, Dave. I've not heard the referee telling the players to start playing. We're now at the 4-minute and 20-second mark. These players should already have played a couple of rallies at this point. Unfortunately, they have our referee stuck in the Stone Ages.
Well, he is 150 years old.
Well, rules are in place for a reason, Dave, and violators will be dealt with accordingly.
Okay, we're ready to start the second game. Lines when we're ready. Nett serving 0-0.
Score is 0-0.
Short.
And Dave, unlike that Luis Cordova, Tommy Little first game, where it was Luis Cordova jumping off to a huge lead and then Tommy Little making a huge comeback, that game was close throughout. I mean, there was absolutely no difference between these two guys throughout any of that first game. Terrible shot there from Andy Nett.
Side out.
And it's strange to me, Dave, the balls that Andy Nett gets and the ones that he doesn't get. You see the get that he didn't make at the end of the first game, which was a ball that looked like a very gettable ball. And then he'll make these unbelievable diving backhanded fist re-kills.
You're right.
From nowhere, and then you hit a ball almost right to him and he doesn't even go for it. It's a strange phenomenon. I don't really understand it. Andy Nett driving that ball into the floor. Now, Andy had his feet set under him there, and that was a very high percentage shot that he missed.
0-1.
There's a nice pickup from Andy.
Now, you know, in that, watch this right here, that first game, you brought up the fact that when a server is serving, if they hit the ball under the ground, it should just be a second serve, just like in tennis when you don't hit a ball out in the crowd, you don't say you lost the serve.
Yeah.
What about if you hit a ball into the side wall or into the ceiling?
To me, it's the same thing. To me, it's a second serve. And I don't...
I mean, you got 400 square feet to hit a... I mean,
it
I don't even know if you could throw a dart in there, Dave, with that logic.
It doesn't matter, though. That's not my argument. My argument is that a short serve is a short serve, whether it hits the floor first or hits the short line.
2-0.
Why should be penalized more for a certain type of short serve?
Side out.
It's food for thought, as they say.
0-2.
And right now, Dave, it's Luis Moreno that looks very flat. Andy Nett's had a couple of opportunities here. He's put 4 balls into the ground on pretty routine setups for him. And Luis Moreno right now does not have the zip on the ball. He's actually lifting the ball rather than driving the ball on his serve. His serves are coming off the back wall. And Andy Nett that time took advantage.
2-1.
And Andy Nett with nearly a flat kill on the serve there. Luis Moreno has not hit a good shot yet in this second game. He's been the beneficiary of 4 Andy Nett skips, and now Andy Nett has converted his 4th kill shot.
3-1.
Luis Moreno has only hit 1 kill shot thus far in this second game. Really has not
Side out.
been able to do much, but that time was a beautiful 2-ball pass return.
1-3.
Score here is 1 serves 3. Moreno.
That was way short. I'm actually shocked, Dave, that Luis would appeal that. Now, according to the rule that if you hit the ball into the ground, you lose the serve. If you appeal a ball that was that far short, shouldn't you be penalized in some way? Like
Kicked out of the tournament, no pay. Automatic forfeit.
But that's kind of my argument, Dave. You're not penalized if you appeal a terrible.
I get what you're trying to say there.
Okay. But you still haven't taken a stance on my hitting the ball into the floor automatic side out argument, which is frustrating.
I would think that there's a lot of sports where certain things just don't seem to make sense, but they are part of the history of the sport, and you just don't tamper with them.
Well, since when do we adhere to all the history of the sport? We're making rule changes every day, Dave, to try and make ourselves more viable for network TV. And now you're telling me that we have to adhere to 150-year-old principles? I'm kind of confused. Is that you talking out of both sides of your mouth, or is that just you with amnesia?
No, I'm just trying to be logical a little bit without weighing all the different decisions that could be made on all the strange rules. I mean, why go into the court with eye guards?
Well, eye guards are for protection.
Yeah, but that should be up to the players, right?
No.
Why
There's
not?
liability concerns.
Really?
Yes. I just wanted to say that, but I believe eyewear should be mandatory. And Luis Moreno, fortunate there.
I mean, I'm just thinking about how many times you see a ball actually go into the ground. We've seen it twice today, but is that enough to change a rule?
Well, have you ever watched the Irish play?
Thought that ball could have been called short.
Well, even twice, though, Dave, can make a huge difference.
Four serves 3.
And now it's Luis Moreno.
5-3.
With a short ball.
1 serve.
I like that shot there from Luis. Just unbelievable power. Now he's got the setup and he goes with the passing shot. I actually believe now that Andy Nett is hitting that wall, Dave. It's his 5th game of the day, Luis Moreno's 2nd game of the day. Andy Nett really pushed himself, I believe, Dave, in that first match. I don't know what you think, but it seemed like that match was pretty taxing on him physically and mentally. Luis Moreno now just sort of getting into his groove as he's getting himself into this tournament, just as Andy Nett has about nothing left.
Well, I agree that Andy obviously put a little bit out. You're watching the Simple Green
Just a little bit.
race for 8 here in Tucson. I don't mean it in a slight because he played you. I mean, I believe he put it, you know, he put everything he had into that match. He definitely wanted to beat you when he played you, and he did beat you. But I think that's everybody in this position that's played that earlier round, like Charlie Shanks, you would say that he had to push through Armando Ortiz as well. And so I think that's just the complex of the way that this structure is.
But there is talk, Dave, and there was a formula proposed by Dan Armijo that allows the losers of the qualifier final to step in and challenge the top 4 guys. So we have a 16-person field. And I know that was tabled, that discussion, but the pros unanimously agreed to that. I think that actually could improve the balance of play here. And I'm the first one to say, Dave, that I suggested the 12-person draw, and we're seeing now that there are some potential drawbacks to that 12-person draw. I know, Dave, that you've never admitted that you made a mistake of any kind.
2nd serve.
Not even when you're shown emails that you've sent that prove that you're wrong. Just go into spin control. Not a good shot there from Luis. Should have ended the rally there and just lets Andy Nett hang around here. And now it's Andy Nett still in this point, and he shouldn't be. And now it's finally Luis Moreno putting an end to that rally. And you have to think, Dave, that it's incredibly deflating for Andy Nett, who was on the verge of winning that first game, just one shot, one ace away from capturing that first game. And now he's at the bottom of the mountain once again, having to win 2 games in a row on extremely tired legs against a guy that's really fresh and really probably one of the top 2 players in the world right now. He's coming off a win in Idaho and a semifinal loss at the US Open. So he's been right there at the top in all of these events thus far this year. And that serve is just terrifying.
Unbelievable serve.
I agree. Absolutely incredible.
We used to play Luis here in Tucson to help him spar, but we were getting 0 and 1, and he moved on to better things.
Well, you know you're good when some of the top players in the world live in your city and they can't even give you a game.
Somehow, Andy Nett won that rally.
Sides out.
Andy Nett looks like he's lost some of his intensity as well, Dave. I don't think he believes he can come back and win this second game. And you can see the zip on his serve just not there right now. That ball hangs up.
9-3.
Luis Moreno has Andy going the wrong way there. As Andy's leaning to the right and Luis hits a reverse behind himself to the left.
10-3.
And another amazing serve dug out by Andy Nett, but just delays the inevitable as Luis Moreno buries the fly kill in the right corner.
11-3.
11 serves 3. Moreno wins the first one, 21-20. If the matches have not gone tiebreakers so far in this tournament, somebody has scored 20 points in a losing effort in 2 games.
Well, we did see a very close first game with John Bike and Alan Gunner. That match ended in 2 games. This match looked like it will also end in 2 games with Andy Nett scoring 20 in the first game and now very few in the second game.
Now it looks like Luis is trying to get us or help us stay on to some type of court schedule now. It's like he's just in the middle of what you call the quickening. Everything just seems to be elevated and quicker and faster, and he's scoring points in bunches.
Is that sort of like the awakening?
A little different than that, but
okay. Because it seems like his game is now awakening. He's playing the kind of handball we saw him play to dominate in Idaho. Let's not forget just how closely bunched these pro players are, Dave. Luis Moreno got all the glory in Idaho, but don't forget, he trailed 9-6 in the tiebreaker against Sean Lenning. Sean Lenning double faulted at 9-6, and Luis Moreno got back into the box and scored 5 consecutive points. Now, if Sean Lenning doesn't double fault there, conceivably Sean Lenning goes on and wins that match, and we're talking about him as one of the hottest players in the world.
well, he is currently ranked #1 in the WPH rankings. So he is one of the hottest players in the world.
But his
momentum.
He's streaking though, Dave, in the wrong direction. Now, obviously, he hasn't played here yet.
That was a strange ball. Did it skip in?
I think it was one of those balls that just barely hit the front wall, then the floor, then the side wall without actually hitting the side wall on the fly and popped straight up.
I think the biggest streaking player going in reverse is Dave Chapman. Now, he had a really hefty lead as the #1 player in the world, and all of a sudden it just kind of eliminated. I agree with Moreno here.
I actually don't. I agree with Andy Nett. Andy Nett hasn't said anything, but I agree with the referee. That ball was past Luis Moreno.
We can see the replay at any time.
3-14.
3 serves 14.
Well, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the losing streaking of Dave Chapman, because he didn't play in Idaho. Do you consider that a losing streak if you don't play? A DNP, did not play. He did win the Nationals in his last four-wall tournament before the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open, obviously, he didn't look good, but that is just one tournament. One tournament a streak does not make.
Well, he didn't play in Idaho because he just didn't feel like playing handball. That sounds to me like
3-14.
that's a beginning of a some kind of strange streak, whether it's physical or mental or burned out. I mean, Dave Chapman travels everywhere and plays handball all the time. And taking that into consideration. Andy's just backs Luis Moreno into the wall there, takes the shot, and then hits it right back at himself. He could have done about 50 different things right there to get that point.
3-14. Point.
Beautiful shot there from Andy Nett.
Five serves 14. Andy Nett serving to Luis Moreno.
Great serve there from Andy. Luis has a big lead here, Dave, but
6-14.
would be well advised to take a timeout should Andy Nett score another point here, because just like himself, Andy Nett can put together a very quick streak. Now Luis losing his concentration a little bit, not sharp in his shot making.
Why are you setting them up like that? Come on. Think.
Luis talking to himself there. Representing the Idaho Spuds.
7-14.
Andy Nett representing the same team, right?
That's right. These guys actually don't know they're on the same team, though.
Point.
And Luis now practicing on his own there between points. He only has 10 seconds after that rally ends to be ready to return the serve. Andy Nett with the delayed dive, and he stays down. And Luis blasting the ball past him as Andy Nett stuck there in the middle of the court.
Now Andy's practicing because Luis is practicing.
14-8.
Of all the cool gadgets we have here in the booth, Dave, nothing's better than this $5 stopwatch that you and I fight over.
Actually $4.99.
15-8.
It's actually our new toy here in the box. We're not interested in the flat screens or the projectors or the computers or $100,000 cameras, just this $4.99 stopwatch. It's a lot of fun. Not a good serve there from Luis. Not sure what he was trying to do there, Dave. I don't see Luis hit too many standard three-wall serves.
8-15.
Big setup there for Andy, and he's in control here. And unfortunately for Andy, hit a couple of pretty good shots there, and Luis just barely scraping that ball off the top of his fingertips for a rollout. That's very demoralizing if you're Andy Nett.
Well, some people would say Luis is lucky, but we've seen him do that so many times.
8-15.
Andy Nett, no footwork there, Dave. I think both of us saw that ball coming around the revolving door. Andy Nett didn't, and he was completely flat-footed, having to resort to the behind-the-back slash.
It's gonna be a setup for Luis. Tries to power by Andy, unable to do it, and then hits the next one on the ground.
Luis's footwork just a little bit off there on that last shot, Dave, as he stepped too soon. He had his left foot pointing too far towards the side wall. He was unable to rotate that right hip through because of it. The left foot blocked the right hip turn. You actually want to be square, Dave, to the side wall, not over-rotated so that your shoulders are facing the side wall and back wall.
Moreno back in the server's box at 15-8. He won the first one, 21-20. This is the men's quarterfinals of the Tucson Race for 8 stop. Brought to you by Simple Green and the World Players of Handball. And there's another point for Moreno.
Beautiful shot there from Luis. And this is when Luis is at his best, Dave, when he's looking for the fly kill off those great serves and taking advantage of them. You see, a lot of the times, Dave, particularly when Luis is upset with himself or frustrated.
There's a broken ball.
He lets a lot of those fly kill opportunities bounce and backs up. When he gets really comfortable, Dave, he starts stepping in, moving forward.
And those are some of the tendencies that you see from Sean Lenning when he gets that serve cracking. He's staying up front. He's not backing out. And you oftentimes, and we'll see it here in a minute, Natti Alvarado has such a great serve that what he does is he serves and he starts backing out of that past the short line toward the dotted line, and he has the opportunity, and he's like always kind of mad at himself for taking too many steps back. But you see Sean Lenning and Luis Moreno actually going forward after those serves.
I actually believe, Dave, that these balls should be warmed up, opened, and thrown around so the film comes off the balls rather than spending 1 minute warming the ball up.
We'll talk to our lead ref after this match and have him delegate.
Do you want to talk to the head of the refs or the lead ref?
The head of the refs.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, we can talk right now.
That's what I was indicating.
Okay. I actually need
in
to
other words,
delegate that to my lead ref.
Right. I was suggesting that you don't need to keep bringing it up. You can just take care of the issue.
Well, I can't right now. I have dozens of people awaiting my commentary.
If that.
Well, I was being generous.
How generous? That's the question.
Well, when I went with the plural, it was pretty generous.
18.
The plural implies could be thousands. Well, I predicted 3 broken balls in this match, and so far we're on our 3rd ball. Only one broken technically, and the other one is sort of sitting in the wings, waiting to be broken. There it is.
But you haven't won yet, Dave, because they could very well break a 4th. And
well, that's
you know, Dave, just like in The Price is Right, if you go over, you lose.
That's a good point.
So you haven't won yet, so don't count your chickens before they hatch.
He's a great I watch Sal. I love to watch Sal.
Our next matchup, Dave, will be the beautiful Natti Alvarado Jr. taking on the youngster, making his first ever quarterfinal appearance at a pro stop. These two have played before on this very court just about 6 months ago. That was around a 16 match, won easily by Natti Alvarado.
Otherwise, Natti wouldn't even know who he is.
He actually still doesn't know who he is.
19-8.
19 serves 8.
Oh, screen serve.
Ooh.
Screen serve. That is just a... Let's take an instant replay of that screen serve, Dave, because it was called late. It looked like Luis was about 6 feet from the left side wall, the ball landing about a foot from the side wall, so that was about 5 feet behind him. I don't know how that can possibly be called a screen serve.
Well, let's look here.
Let's look where Luis is standing, and let's look where the ball lands. I believe it lands right in between the doubles alley box.
That's a screen serve?
That wasn't the serve. That was from the previous rally. We're looking for the rally just previous to the timeout. I don't know if we have the instant replay of that, but it was actually a reverse that Luis hit down the left that didn't hit the side wall. I actually hope that we can get the instant replay of that, but I don't think we will.
I do like that serve, though. That's a good one for the instruction video.
Well, you'll be teaching a handball camp here, Dave, in about a month, and I know that you've got a lot of various techniques that you'll be using to improve the games of your students.
19-8.
How many meals to eat within a half an hour before a match.
Second serve.
That's the 4th time we've seen Andy do that in this match.
Well, it just shows you the power and the hop that Luis Moreno puts on the ball. And that's a beautiful 2-all pass.
Andy's somehow still in this rally, and he might win it, and he does.
Luis Moreno, Dave, will face the winner tomorrow morning of the Natti Alvarado-Luis Cordova match. If Natti Alvarado is to win that match, it will be a rematch of the finals at the Jake Plummer Hell of a Family Bash, won by Luis Moreno. In fact, Dave, that was the first time Luis Moreno has ever beat Natti Alvarado in 4-wall tournament play. He did defeat Natti Alvarado in Las Vegas in short wall 3-wall. So actually, Dave, if you're going by the books, he's got a 2-match winning streak against Natti Alvarado. Now, not everyone would consider the 3-wall tournament, Dave, part of that streak, but it was a win. And
It's strange that Andy Nett slips right there, but no one cleans up the floor.
I think he actually tripped
Just
on his
tripped
own
on his-
feet.
That's why he was smiling. And there it is. Luis Moreno takes down Andy Nett 21-20, 21-8. And we have Luis Cordova now versus Natti Alvarado coming up right around the corner. We're going to take a timeout. We'll be back for Dave Fink, Linda Manning, and Omar Lemus. I'm Dave Vincent. Stick with us at racefor8.com. We have more on the way.
Hello, I'm Bruce Fabrizio, inventor of Simple Green. Our non-toxic, biodegradable, all-purpose cleaner works great for cleaning. Thank you. Non-toxic, biodegradable, Simple Green. It's great for cleaning.
Working and working out takes a lot of energy. That's why I drink Zenergy. Feeling fantastic and looking good has never been easier. Science, extreme science for your active lifestyle.